we're gonna talk about a holistic approach for game art.
I'm not super sure about this.
So if you want to be a rock star, you should live like a rock star.
Actually, this is a bad idea.
Oh my god, I want to have fun.
Make models!
And then go.
Good luck, Manel. Make it in 5 days.
You're making me hungry. Hello everyone, and tonight again is me, Nanelle Anderson, CEO of Devoted Studios and your host at SpeakEasy, and Horia Dociu. And today we're going to talk about a holistic approach for game art.
I think that this is info that's useful to anybody working in game art to kind of better improve interdisciplinary communication, to get and give feedback more clearly. And this is just how I think about any artistic undertaking, so that we're all kind of marching toward the same vision or goal. And then I also think that it's a good process to apply to your personal work. If you're trying to get your portfolio to look like you've done the job you're applying for, kind of going through this checklist or simulating this process at home by yourself or with your peers is a way to make it look like you've actually solved the challenges of on-site game art. So this is stuff that I think I wish I would have known a little earlier in my career, and I'm trying to kind of like impart that out. So yeah, hopefully people find it useful.
So if you want to be a rock star, you should live like a rock star. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Okay. Well, sure. Yeah. I guess. To some degree.
Okay.
One of the main things that you need to figure out for yourself, and this is before you kind of include anybody else in the team, is think about what you're trying to do. So for myself, I have kind of this goal underlying everything that I do. That's, as an art director, I want to strive to build a world that deserves to exist, and it's wonder-filled and beautiful, and it's sort of punching a hole in reality and letting players see and experience things they simply can't anywhere else. So I think that's a pretty good kind of aspirational goal, so that I can really look through that lens as I approach any artistic problem. Let's, for the sake of this example, let's just talk about like a fake game. We're going to make some aliens for a game. How would we go about that? Or how would I try and organize my thoughts? And so my first slide is called "A Creature is a Feature," because nothing in a game is a standalone object. It's not just a cool model of a monster. It's really like a fully fleshed interactive experience, and it needs a lot of like interdisciplinary alignment, so that everybody's on the same page about like, how should the player feel about this thing? How do you interact with it? How do you use our game mechanics to defeat it or whatever? And so I think it really takes a lot of communication on everybody's part, and the key thing is that everybody is really always looking at the same North Star to ensure that this creature, for example, has that cohesion that makes it greater than the sum of its parts. It has a harmony. So the first or next thing that we want to talk about is tone, and that's the next slide, which is everything that informs the look of the game, the whole experience, colors, music, fonts, anything that goes into this experience, I think is tone. And so, I have some examples here of different alien movies. Saying an alien is not enough. Is this like a funny comedy thing? Is it scary? Is it realistic, humanoid, whatever? But at the end of the day, that stuff, the tone comes from what you're trying to get the end user, to the player, the viewer, whatever, to feel. So if they're supposed to be delighted, if they're supposed to be horrified, you're not just picking a tone for tone's sake.
In my head, I instantly go to, what was the movie? I think it was Gremlins or something like that. I'm not sure there is a correct translation, but there was those like little cutie, like furry little gremlins, and you're like, oh my god, I want to have one. And then there was the ones that were like, yeah, no, you need to go away, right? And I think like the mood was getting darker when they were showing them versus the ones that are like the cutie patootie ones. So I could totally I could totally see what you're talking about here. I actually have a question when it comes to like creatures, because I think last time when I was talking to Tremail Isaac, he was saying that it is very important when you're building a creature, for example, to make sure that it's alien but not too alien. Like it needs to be some sort of like it has to have some connection to how things in a real world look like. Otherwise, they won't be relatable, and people just won't connect or won't understand that. Do you apply the same practice to what you do when it comes to creatures?
Absolutely. Anything that you do should be based on reference. We all have this kind of shared human experience, and a glowing sphere could be awe-inspiring or magical or maybe scary. You don't know that it could melt you with its mind. It's just a glowing sphere. What is that? But a robot that looks like a spider or like a scorpion. That stinger is going to come down and hurt you. Or something that looks like it has fangs. Anything you can imbue some real life references of people going, oh my god, the aliens from the Ridley Scott Aliens movie. They have like rib cages and skull features and no eyes, and it's kind of like corpses meets cockroaches. It's very like scary and creepy crawly, even when you mention those words. And so anything that we could do to kind of like have a little bit of the theater of the mind come into play is super important. Yeah. So then my next slide would be kind of talking about functional models, which is just the first thing you've heard, fail fast. And so the first thing you want to figure out is like, what exactly are we trying to do? What's this creature about? What do the gameplay guys want it to do or feel like, whatever? So is it something you shoot 100 times with a bullet and it finally goes down, or you just need to shoot it once, but it's so quick and it runs away, that kind of deal. So the first thing to do is just some really quick doodles and kind of like this on a whiteboard on a napkin. Just get on the same page about what the heck you're talking about, so you have a general idea. And then I think with anything in games, it's really important to judge it in the game. And so build it out of cubes, build it out of ZBrush balls, whatever you got to do, but just shove it in the game and walk around it. And, because you can't really experience a sculpture until it's 3D, and you can't experience a creature until it's, in game, you're walking around it, and then preferably the animators can start roughing in some really crude animations, and they can start scripting some rough behaviors for it, and it can shoot, it's projectiles that you, whatever, but like you want as quickly as possible to get that sort of squint test of, does this feel how we want it to be? Or is it too big? Is it not scary enough? Is it, then I think the next step two, is theme ideation. And I don't know if it's really step two or if it can happen before or in parallel, but, we just talked about a very crude, low poly box model that's just in there, just moving around like a Roomba. The kind of flavor of aliens that this is. Now, this might, if it's an IP like Halo, you already know what the aliens are, or if it's a new alien, you kind of know some rules that we follow, but if you're starting a new game from scratch, you kind of got to think about, hey, what is our theme, and what's going to differentiate us? We can't copy Halo aliens. We can't copy Ridley Scott's Alien. We can't, or HR Geek or whatever, are they robots? Are they drones? Are they, thinking about what these bad guys are and making sure that supports, again, your main North Star. What do we want it to feel? What's the story trying to say? Once you kind of have like a rough idea and you settled on it with the writers and story people, then you kind of want to go to mood boards, which is the next step of, again, failing fast, finding things cheaply, instead of people drawing and rendering beautiful renderings of the wrong alien. Let's get into the general ballpark. Like, are they, my example here, are they steampunk Martians? Are they these kind of like half robot, half creature, 1950s inspired, slightly campy, kind of cool steampunk aliens? Or are they like these gritty, hell demon, whatever looking guys? And there's so much art on the internet, and it's not about copying it. It's just saying, which ballpark are we in? Are we closer to the movie Aliens, or are we closer to Gremlins? Like people deciding that and using the visual to kind of rally around, as opposed to just verbally. And all of that is before the next step, which is then you get into concept art. Like there's no reason for anybody to truly render out, past a napkin sketch, anything, until you've gotten kind of that agreement of like, yeah, we want a giant scorpion. That could fit our game. And it could be a robot giant scorpion. Yeah, that would fit the tone of this game. And it's silly enough of a game to, have scorpions. then it's worth somebody rendering it out and not doing one gorgeous illustration, but rather, a few. It can have 6 legs, it can have 8 legs, it can have, instead of claws, it's got machine guns, instead of tail, it shoots rocket launchers. But I mean, like, really, like, exploring and doing everything you can to kind of figure out, you want that relatability. When I say Space Marine, you can think of a Master Chief or a bunch of other games that have kind of metal guys, but it's like, okay, there's no more room for those, So if you're going to do a new game about Space Marines, what's the catch? Are they cowboy inspired? Are they pirate inspired? Are they, what's going to be are they really sleek? Or are they kind of whatever, steampunky? But I mean, it's just all that exploration and honing can happen kind of like simultaneously. And even concept art, which is way quicker to do than 3D models, etc., even that should be treated as a commodity that we don't get into until we've really sorted out the bullet points on the whiteboard and a crude sketch. You want to make sure that you're in the right ballpark, and then you can go nuts and figure out your own take on this. But if it's not built on a solid foundation, it's not going to be worth exploring, and you're just wasting people's time and energy. After concept art, then we can get into kind of refining the 3D, and you can have sort of ZBrush models, and you can kind of texture them nicely, and you can even that stuff do crudely first. When you're getting into texturing, do a rough pass, and does this red, is it too red? Is it standing out enough? Is it standing out too much from the environment? Does this thing seem more important than the bad guys? If you're designing a barrel, how do you make sure that the barrel tells a story? This barrel is from an abandoned army base, yada, 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 and it explodes. How do you tell all the things you need to do, but also stay in your lane? I was in band in school, so I remember not everybody can play at the same volume. When it's the flute's turn, trumpets better shut the hell up and go down to pianissimo, So the same thing. You've got to kind of like crudely shove the stuff in. Is the scale right? It's not tweak it. Is the color, the tone, the values, all that stuff? How do we light it? How bright are the effects? Are the dangerous parts of it that actually shoot you and hurt you? Do those stand out more than the ambient effects of, this is a smoldering magic flame dragon? So all that stuff has to be figured out, and it's a tuning and leveling exercise. And so it really doesn't make sense to go full in and render the hell out of a texture if you're not sure it's the right, it's even the right color, right?
I'm sure in the beginning of the project, you also design a color palette. Like, what are the colors that fit the most for your game? Like, for example, like Fall Guys, I think it's really brilliant. I bet you played or seen Fall Guys. They have decided that all the colors in the game going to have names. So it's not going to be green. It's going to be like chocolate chip mint, and the yellow is like vanilla, and the pink is the candy. And so like all of the colors had their certain like candy names. So it would be really, really easy for all the artists kind of work with the feeling that those colors need to give, and also have a very certain references of what kind of green it is. I thought it was really, really, really clever.
Yeah. I don't personally prescribe any colors because I think those are, you need to use a full rainbow to tell a story. If it's some, in Last of Us, there's this part where you're kind of exploring this abandoned hotel, and then you come into this room, and there's somebody that's been murdered there, like freshly murdered. They've been interrogated, tied to a chair, and all the other rooms they had like the kind of ambient gray light coming through the. It's just like a normal day. Then you get in there, and the curtains are drawn, so it's filling the room with this red light of the red curtains. And so they had this awesome like little mood shift without really, without hammering you over the head with it, that you get in there and it's like all of a sudden it's really kind of like dark and red, like you think of like blood. And I mean, red has to do with anger and rage and all that stuff. And so they changed the mood just brilliantly. And so if they, at the beginning, somebody said, we're never using red, like what the heck, but that said, I think it does have to do with the theming and the way they use colors, and the kind of colors they use is definitely going to be different than Mario Kart. Mario Kart wants to be this saccharine kind of Saturday morning serial, fun cartoon everything, the fonts, the music, all the stuff in that game is trying to get across the emotion of playfulness and fun. Same with Fall Guys, right? Candy, party, it's exciting, it's fun, it's toys, you're having a good time. Versus Last of Us, it's like, it's grim and it's grounded and it's believable. And I want you to feel for these people. And so
you're making me hungry. Cereal, candies, all of that stuff for you. No mercy. Okay.
That actually brings us to the next slide, which is about stylization. Again, this all happens in parallel. I don't mean that these are the necessarily that order. Obviously, you want a rough model before you want a final model, but stuff like stylization should be sorted out early. The game designers can absolutely play with a scorpion-esque creature from day one. Go nuts. That's the main bad guy is Scorpion. It's great. But does it look like, Zelda Wind Waker, or does it look like photoreal, Legolas from Lord of the Rings? Who's going to be fighting the spider, and the spider's going to look like that. So if it's cell shaded, if it's using PBR, beautiful realistic lighting, if it's somewhere in the middle, does it look like a comic book? Does it look like realistic materials, but the models are stylized? All that stuff has to be sorted out, but the point of it is to support the tone. And I think since you brought up Fall Guys, toys, bubblegum, party, like these are, like that's the kind of game it is. They're these bite-sized, quick, fun games. They're silly. They're exciting. You can think of like a bowl of candy spilling. I mean, like that's an emotion that we can all kind of think back to a kid's birthday party. And if those characters were realistic and they looked like, the realism level of a Naughty Dog character from Last of Us, even if they're not bloody and have stains and all that, but if it's somebody dressed in a party hat and it's a guy with a beard and it's like gross, man, and they're falling off it. That's not the same as cute little jelly bean people, right? And so it's like we're going for maximum fun and cuteness. So that's where stylization really has to match the tone. And so all these things that I'm talking about are just pillars holding up that same North Star. And then something that I think is really important when you're making games, and it's also important to do with your own work, is kind of take time to bake it, and you can't make bread twice, or you can't make bread twice as fast by just cranking up the heat or you burn it, right? Or 9 women can't give birth in 1 month. Well, there's 9 women and it takes 9 months. There you go, right? It's just, there's no other axis that you can measure time on. And so are we getting sick of the sound effects of this monster? We've hung out with it in game for a month now. And that squeak, 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 when the scorpion shoots its lasers out of its tail, it's so fucking annoying. At first it was kind of cool and different, but it's grinding our nerves. We couldn't tell that if we didn't play it for a long time. We all liked it a month ago. Let's sit with it and see if indeed it's true. And just letting ideas kind of mature in games and having people react to it, not just the knee-jerk reaction, but hey, maybe it's a little weird at first, but it actually grows on you. Well, that's actually something good. And then we just need to patch up. How do we have that initial reaction tweak,
What's that in the hallway? What's that in the hallway? Oh, that's a girl.
And I'm sure everybody has that thing where artists, you draw something and then you forget about it, and a couple weeks later you look at it, like, what the fuck was I doing? Oh my God, this arm, this bug, the perspective's off. Why didn't I think to give this guy a shark head? That would have been cooler, And so you have that fresh perspective. Let your game mature. Let it bake, whatever the feature is. And when you're in a team environment, especially, I think that ideas are like little sprouts coming out of little blade of grass, or even an oak tree has a little sprout. And if you go, well, that's not an oak tree, and you smash it, you're never going to get a damn oak tree. You know what I mean? So an idea, you got to let it, okay, that could be something. You kind of let it grow, and then you sort of like trim it like a bonsai tree, and you can nurture, if it's a good idea, you can nurture it into something that works. Another analogy I've heard is from the writers of 30 Rock, which is my favorite show. I think it's hilarious. And the writers had this thing of like, when we start an episode, we have a table in front of us, so to speak, and it's got pieces of coal and diamonds. So if we just pick out the diamonds, the best jokes, we have like 3 jokes. And in our show, that's about 30 seconds of comedy. We've got 22 more minutes to fill. So we can't just sit there and only pray for diamonds. So now we have to pick up each one of these things and go, hey, is this a piece of of crap and it's thrown out, or is it coal and we work it together and we pass it around and we work it into a diamond? You know what I mean? Or I guess it's a table. Is it diamond or is it crap? You can't have, or you have to go, oh wait, this has potential. And again, you got to put the time and the energy and the back and forth. And sometimes even just sitting with something, your subconscious kind of fills in the blanks and you come back the next day, or, shower thoughts, you go take a shower and you go, oh my God, I know how to fix this. And you kind of go back to it. So
have those moments, but with that in mind, I mean, game development is not a world of butterflies and unicorns, right? It's the world of deadlines.
Actually, should be in about 10 minutes.
Here on one side, we talk about this creativity and aspiration and giving it time for baking. But then when we work with, freelance talent or external talent, you have 10 days to create a character, or at max. Most of the times you have 5, right? And then go. And we don't think about the pre-production of it, of somebody like getting into the franchise and things like that. And what if you needed 7 days? Are you a bad artist? Like, how does that work? How do we measure that? When it's creativity versus time versus deadline versus budgets.
There's the tension between the creativity and the realities of production. So every movie has a producer and a director. I want it to be the most creative, cool, awesome, whatever. You need to get it on fucking budget and on time. And then there's this push and pull on every single decision, But there's also this, I think even the most hardened, or especially the most hardened producers will tell you, don't confuse motion for action. Everybody get busy. Everybody start modeling. Modeling fucking what? Make models. Cool. And he's gonna make a dinosaur. He's gonna make a cheese grater. Is it the dinosaur and cheese grater game? You know what I mean? So I think you have to work into your schedule, or at least this is what I'm always striving for. And I think what's shown results is putting the stuff in as quickly as possible. If we don't have a scorpion, but we have a helicopter that could shoot laser, put the fucking helicopter in there upside down. It sort of looks like a scorpion. Who cares? We want to see how fast it moves, how big it is. You can find out a lot about shoving in a helicopter on top of a tank rig, calling it scorpion, and just seeing like, is this, if I squint, is that the right size? Or is that just totally off? You can learn something in 5 minutes that you might say, actually, this is a bad idea, and I'm not going to spend 5, 7, whatever days modeling it out. So there's always these things of like course corrections and things weren't thought out enough, or we had to change this story, so now this thing doesn't make sense. Good luck, and I'll make it in 5 days. It sucks, but I think ideally you want to work this stuff into the process, because otherwise it's going to come out in user research, it's going to come out in your testing. If something's not scary, if something's not fun, the players will tell you right away. You know what I mean? And so why not find out on your own early, before you've invested all this time making your scorpion boss? Took you 6 months altogether when you consider gameplay and effects and all that. Oops, we got to either cut an awesome boss battle from the game, or we have to make it from scratch. That's another 6 months. Or well, we've learned a lot. Maybe it's 5 months. Maybe we reused it. It's 4 months. Save the 4 months and do a week of honest pre-pro. And before that, do a month of serious soul searching about what the tenets are and those axes that we talked about. So I think that's the the way you'd like to work. And sometimes the realities of things changing, or tools not working, or whatever changes that. But if we don't strive for that kind of discipline of like failing early and whatever, we're not going to get there artistically and emotionally, nor will we get there on time. So I think when it comes to that tension, both parties can agree about fail fast.
Well, and also speak up when you need more time. And also be merciful when other people need more time, because ideas don't I don't, sometimes certain things are quick and easy, and sometimes certain things just it's not like you're a bad artist. It's just, it doesn't fit well. You're not in the right place. You're not in the right mood. I don't know. There's a bunch of things. And I think communicating that you need more time is very important, rather than submitting whatever you have and being like, well, I don't know, this, I came up with that. I don't know.
Absolutely. And I think even more important than that, yes, and if you get a brief and you're like, I'm not super sure about this, ask some questions. An email is so cheap that you can, in the first 5 minutes, go, wait, is this thing really 30 meters long? does this thing really have 2 scorpions? Whatever you think is going to be the hang up that you don't get, and say, hey, this might be a dumb question, but have you thought about this? Or, and either they give you an answer and they forgot to write it down, or go, oh shit, okay, sorry, I need to get back to the drawing board. We didn't even think about that, And so, again, the sooner and earlier you can figure things out that you need to test, the better. And then again, working in steps that are chunks of cheap and quick ways to find results, so that you can always turn back, and you're not precious about it. No one should be in ZBrush adding pores to a character until, like, the character should be shippable, but it just be a little better with some pores on it. You know what I mean? Like, that's how ideally you want to work.
Got it.
But there is this, you talked about you're not a bad artist and communicating and all that stuff. I think there is this kind of trust and respect that when I talk about this interdisciplinary kind of, hey, we all want the scorpion to feel this way, and we all want it to be scary, and we all want it to be a little funny, or whatever the hell. Once you guys, shake hands on that stuff, I think then you gotta trust that each department understands and they're going to do their best. So, I think it was on Second Son, we had I forget what, laser, some kind of, or Guild Wars, maybe it was Guild Wars, but there was some kind of laser power, and one of the tenets was like, it has to be seen from across the screen. And so the designer said, hey, can you make it bright blue? And yeah, I agree. But then when we got to think, well, hold on a second, this other power is blue and it should be bright green or whatever. I got what I needed from them. It needs to be seen across the screen. That's what I owed them. It's suggested blue. It's not right. I can make it pink or orange if I have the good reasons. Like, they need to trust me. And of course I was able to present, hey, here's why. Who's too close to this? We don't want to get mixed up. The background's really blue. It's not going to stand out, yada. But it's that level of brightness that you need. And sure enough, when they see it across the level, it works. It's like, great. So you're all sharing that North Star, but how you get there? I'm going to swim and I'm going to climb up this mountain. Great. Do what you got to do, sound guy. Do what you got to do, animator gal. That kind of thing is that respect and space is super important. And then if you don't like the animation or whatever, then you're not saying, well, Nanelle, you're a bad animator and I don't like this. You could say, the reason I don't. I can't do that face. No one's gonna buy that for me.
Well, I didn't even start animating, and I'm already a bad animator. Like, what an encouraging! Just kidding.
No, but the key thing is I'm not talking to you and you're bad and whatever. I'm saying, hey, look, this animation is not fast enough for gameplay, right? The player runs away too easy before the scorpion stabs you, or it's not intimidating or scary enough, or so we're always kind of measuring the work against that yardstick of this brief creator, you know what I mean? So then everybody can agree, look, maybe I hate the color purple, but I'm not, that's your call, artist. What I do need it to do is stand out against the background. And right now it's not. So you might say, hey, make it bright pink. It's going to end up green, but it's going to stand up against the background. That's so having that kind of like knowing the give and take of what you really have responsibility for and what you're kind of like just suggesting. And when you have a good team and you find that balance, we got to the part, there was a game designer who wanted to change an effect that we had concept didn't work really. He's like, well, the reason is, like, we've worked enough together. I don't want to fucking waste time for 2 minutes you describing why it's bad. I trust you, homie. It's bad. Great. More visible or more 10 missiles instead of 5, whatever. You don't need to, and then you're really cooking. Now you're just making the game together. And that is the absolute best feeling in the world. And it's something I hunt for at every job I go to. It's awesome.
I love that. Well, so how do you test your theory then? Like, how do you know that that's a good thing or versus not a good thing? Like, what are the measures or boundaries of that?
Yeah, I think, well, does it do what you need it to in the game? And that's where playtesters come in, and you can see, oh my God, everybody's getting stuck on this level. It's too complicated, it's too confusing. We didn't like the path good enough. This boss is too hard. Everybody's dying 1,000 times before they beat it.
I have it memorized. Slide, double tap, bam, slide under. Dude, double tap. Oh my God!
You can also have focus groups or other departments or people who haven't seen it and go, how would you describe this monster? And if scary isn't, or intimidating or dangerous or whatever the heck those vibes you were going for, if those don't come out, it's like, I don't know, it's kind of funny. It's a little cartoonish and like, man, you failed, so there's always, there's ways to test it, but it's just not, do you like this scorpion robot? Who cares if they like it? Does it look dangerous? Does it fit the Mad Max theme we're going for? Is it big? Is it scary? Is it intimidating? Whatever you were trying to go for it, and people can say yes or no. And then the game designers have gameplay tests, and it's just finding ways to do that as soon as possible. Is the scale intimidating enough? Even if it's a cube first.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's too big. I cannot see all of it, so I won't even see its scary tail because we made it too big. So actually, it being the size of a car instead of the size of a house, this car is actually scarier in this game because that evil tail is always on screen. Good to know. I found that out real quick. So that's the point. And then to drive it back to working on your portfolio, if you're kind of having these thoughts and like before you start a drawing, I'm going to draw a portfolio piece. Of what? No one at work says draw a cool picture. They say, I need a bad guy. It needs this type of attack. It goes with this faction or this army. It's found in this area. Like they're going to give you all these bullet points, and then you're cleverly finding, they're giving you the lane, and then you're finding the cool, frequency on which to work and how you're putting your own touches on it. But if you don't have that stuff when you're working on your own work, make it up. And if you want, I just want to draw a fucking scorpion today. Just make up some rules around it. And why would there be a scorpion? What kind of world? So if you put a little person for scale, it looks like a little Mad Max guy, and the scorpion's made out of junk, junkyard scraps or whatever, or it's a military thing. It's the color of a Humvee, and there's a little soldier next to it. But I mean, and it's a sci-fi soldier with glowing eyes. So you're like, what world? Where does it make sense to have a scorpion robot? It's just, you can reverse engineer the stuff just because it's cool, but then you got to change a couple of things. If you say it's a Mad Max world and there's a scorpion robot and it's bright, shiny pink, it doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't. If it's in Barbie's Dreamland game where she's a warrior and she has to fight a scorpion, maybe it is shiny pink. So just by solving all this stuff, it's going to change the decisions you make as a visual artist, and that stuff will absolutely read to someone who's creating your portfolio. I can tell when somebody's just doing fan art of yet another Space Marine versus when they thought about it, they have a point of view, and they really leaned in and found the right references for that. That's the type of person that, whether they've had a job or not before, it says that they're thinking the right things, they're asking the right questions, and even if they don't know always the answer, there's somebody I can guide because they're not going to just go off and work. They're going to have a dialogue with me and the other department. So that's a good way to polish up your portfolio to look like you've done the job you're applying for.
Well, from a theory perspective, that sounds all solid, like I got it, but how does that look like in real life? Like, can we maybe look into portfolios of other people and like, I don't know, you can tell me like, well, you can see here and here because of this and this and this. You can see that the person put thoughts or extra research or anything like that, because how would I know that they did that?